table's so cluttered.
It's all you, bro.
Yeah. So where's the Stennis parked at? Huh? They're left already? They're only here a day. I thought they got back yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, they just got back. They must be parked where we can't see it.
Oh, they're right there.
I thought that was the Nimitz.
The Nimitz says 6'8" on it. The one that's right there is not the Nimitz. Do you see the bow?
Oh, I could. Okay, I didn't even recognize the bow.
That sucks. That means the gym's gonna be packed. I was like, no, they're definitely gone.
I
thought the gym was in your room.
Huh?
I thought the gym was in your room.
It is.
The bench, yeah.
The bench.
I was just telling that story the other day how
Thanks, bro. I was ready to buy it.
I posted on Facebook that when the Nimitz got home,
You got a fucking gym at work.
when the Nimitz got home,
Oh, I'm in standard.
Jordan's not listening.
I'm like right at the top.
I'm listening, but they don't care.
They don't care. Well, it's about Jordan.
There.
So.
That's good.
I lost an inch.
Good shit.
Well, an inch on the first one, and
That's good. Just
Welcome
keep
back
at
to
it.
our viewers in the United States and around the
Huh?
world this hour. This is a special edition of Out Front, and you can see on your screen staff carrying Paul in the U.S. Capitol.
Me too?
President Trump and members of Congress are going to be walking in shortly. That's where you're going to see all the arrivals. You see all the television cameras. They're all going to be arriving there as they go in to the chamber where the President of the United States, President Trump, will deliver his first State of the Union address before the joint session. The President is expected to tell
Real quick,
Yeah.
the subject matter
Also
for
foretold
today
delivering a message that he thinks is of unity and optimism. Jeff
is
Zeleny is out front at the White House.
overly sensitive people in today's society.
Okay.
And when you go too far, when is too far? Where do you draw the line with people that get
It's a
butthurt?
controversial subject.
It's not controversial.
Yeah, it is.
I don't want to trigger you or anything.
By
but-
nature, it is controversial.
Well, yeah, because it changes through time in society. Like what's sensitive in one era is not in the next. So I think that today, in today's society, it seems like it's getting a little out of control.
That people are overly sensitive?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And my question is that I can understand that there's a certain level of sensitivity that needs to be there, so society isn't just crossing the line all the
So
time.
let's use an example.
Okay.
I'll start with a current event such as the Cleveland Indians. Now, were people just being too sensitive since 1943 that they had this really racist depiction of a Native American? They're just being too sensitive, and all of a sudden now everybody's got their senses up and everybody's now defensive? Or was it truly hateful all along?
Well, I think that's what you have to go back to is the origin, okay, of when it was started and what their motivations were. So you look back on that and you think, well, from the time it started, then yeah, you could probably say that there was some racist undertones to that.
So it took 70 years about for that sensitivity to be changed.
I don't know that people are necessarily affected greatly on it.
Who?
People in general, society.
About the Native Americans?
About the Cleveland Indians logo. Like, I don't see the logo and I think, how offensive is that? That we still have that in today's
Yeah, but
teens.
you're not Native American, and that's what keeps it going.
Well,
It's
even
because
when
the
I talk
Native
to Native
American-
Americans
but-
about it, they don't get sensitive.
Yeah,
about
but
it.
that's part of the brainwashing in a sense.
I think
That's
there's more white people
that's-
sensitive about it than Native Americans.
Well, and that's what makes it change. If you have a blacks' right movement or a Native American movement or a women's movement, it's usually white men that have been oppressing the people. And so the more, when you can finally get more white people, white men, to say, yeah, you're right, you're trying to convince them because they're the ones in power. So once now you have enough white people saying, yeah, that's wrong, then that change will happen because they got the power. You have to overthrow the oppressor. And obviously in the Native American case, it was white men basically taking over their land and their country, and they did it successfully, and then they made fun of them through images. And finally, or to desensitize people so that they wouldn't be upset about Native American racial stereotypes. I mean, it's a stereotypical thing, and once you convince people that that stereotype is wrong, then or hurtful in any way, then, and especially for something like sports where it's really pretty benign that you change this flipping logo, you know, you don't have to.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to lose sleep over it or get better sleep over the change. But I do think that it is important as a society to learn from those things and to not come up with new team names that are slanderous or racist or derogatory.
Right. Right. So
think,
we've learned, we've evolved from it. So that's the same thing with people being too sensitive about stuff. I mean, that's where, are they being too sensitive, or are they just on the front edge of making that change start to happen?
well, I think the change has already started to happen. I think we've grown a lot as a civilization and society, but at the same time, I just don't know what's already been put in place is going to make that much of a difference. The Indian logo you talk about, it's just a chief with a feather sticking out of his head.
With his teeth protruded, making him look like he's a comic book character.
Yeah, you see that with other teams, though.
Well, I mean, we're not talking about teams, really. We're talking about people being overly sensitive to things. And that is clearly mocking somebody. It's just like when Trump said, oh, Pocahontas over there. It's like, that's clearly insensitive.
Yeah.
And years ago, it would have been fine because, you know, only white people gave a shit. And now that white people are giving a shit that that's wrong, before it was like, that's funny, you know, but now they're saying, you can't do that, you know, knock that shit off. And that's why it became such a controversial issue, and same with the Redskins, and same with the Cleveland Indians. But it's not really about the baseball as much as, you know, other issues that people are too sensitive about.
Well, I also see a lot of the issues on Facebook with just people's posts in general, posting about their opinions about something. And then it becomes a Facebook battle online with the comment thread.
Just on anything.
Yeah, just on anything that people feel offended by or
don't
agree with.
And you know, that's social media. That's just part of a video game, really. I mean, to make sound bites that are meaningful through, you know, less than 2 sentences, 3 sentences to prove their point. You know, it's a soundbite nation. You can't have a conversation. You know, you can't write that dissertation on and have backing theories and opponents' views, and you know, it's all comes down to these one-liners, these sound bites that you'd hear on Fox
but
or
don't you
CNN.
see social media having an influence over people's the way of thinking and being?
Well, yeah, but I think it's giving people a voice finally that they feel like they'd never had. And that's where it becomes kind of a bullying stone, you know. It's a way in which I can say this now because I'm right here behind a keyboard, nobody can see me, and, you know, even if you know the person personally, you can still attack them publicly like that is, you know, I mean, that's just part of the nature of that thing. But I do believe that it starts a conversation. Before, a lot of people would say, I don't want to talk about this, you know, and like myself, I don't talk about it on Facebook issues. I'll talk to a person personally so we can have a conversation or a dialogue. But really what ultimately it comes down to is it going to be enough to create change in policy, not just attitudes, but those kind of comments and stuff make people aware that there's an issue that they should be concerned about, and changes their behaviors such that it impacts policy and your buying power. You know, I disagree with people boycotting the NFL because of the knee thing. I mean, that's you know, you boycott it for a lot of reasons, but I wouldn't boycott it because of a protest thing.
If anything, for safety.
But it clearly, through the internet, has made people do things differently, not buying the NFL. So
well, I think that's a good example as far as like online social media wars between two different people that have, or two different groups of people that have different opinions about the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, for me personally, if someone says something offensive, and it's not easy to offend me, obviously, but if someone says something that I feel like is offensive, I may not call them out right away. I might just kind of note to self that that person said that. I'm not going to pass, judgment on them too harshly, but I also might choose not to associate with that person again.
Yeah,
and walk away.
And I think that's what allows social media to be useful, to at least have some sort of dialogue. It's petty often, but then when you do get to see the person, maybe you can have a more meaningful conversation. I know a guy that's publicly posted on Facebook how much we should boycott GMOs, for example. Goes on and on how Monsanto is just such a horrible thing, and I've got my one-liner I could respond to, and then I'd get cut down, and so much of it's mocked ad hominem. People spell something wrong, and all of a sudden they don't understand an issue, whatever.
Yeah.
But when I did reach out to that person, when I saw him, I said, "Hey, man, I get where you're coming about modified stuff, but you acknowledge the fact of how many people are alive because of genetic modified food?"
Well, for a subject like that, I think it's important to realize that one of the downsides to genetically modified food is that other than the helpfulness of it, they were doing it to make food grow without dying from Roundup.
Right. Well, we could talk about it all we want, but at the same time, I'm talking about the issue of this guy throwing out slam, and I'm not going to go slam back. I'm going to wait till I see him, or if I was going to say something back, it'd be much more thoughtful than that.
Like there's genetically modified apples to be more juicy. I think they're called Fuji's. And that's fucking awesome. I love that shit. I don't feel like it's a risk to human.
Yeah, but that's like I said, we could talk about GMOs all we want, but I'm talking about the sensitivity issues that people have on Facebook and people being overly sensitive about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once I sat down and talked with him and we had a longer conversation, we walked away, maybe not agreeing, but at least at the same time, we're not sitting there stewing over our keyboards.
So you think that
and that's with all issues. Yeah,
in person, it kind of allowed him to maybe walk away rethinking, or just at least giving it some thought,
right?
As opposed to behind a keyboard.
Exactly.
That's
exactly
more heated. Right. The timing and the context isn't there.
And also, one of the nice things about social media and that kind of discourse is when somebody does post an article saying, okay, this is when the logo was created for the Cleveland Indians, and then you could read the history behind it and where did it come from, and who's really against it, and who is for it, and how many people is this affecting, and who did these studies in the first place. I mean, then it becomes much more, okay, now I can have a dialogue besides just like, I think it's stupid, people are overly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's a big deal calling her Pocahontas? That's no big deal. Or the Redskins, who cares? It's been around forever. Why would we want to change that? That's just stupid. And that's what it always comes down to. It's just stupid, or, whatever, and that's dismissive. It's unintelligent in the sense that you're not trying to open your understanding of another person's disbelief in that, and you can't do that through social media, but you can pass on an opportunity for a person to research it. And I quite often do that when, I read all my right wing as much as my left wing stuff, just to be able to hear what's going on people's perspectives on each side. And, I'd be happy to entertain anybody who has statistics on why it's okay to have, what you think about this opinion based on some more research that you've done or somebody else's theories besides just your one-liner of you're stupid.
Well, here's the counter argument to the
which I always see on that
is these teams they look for logos that identify as something awesome, like Vikings, for example. Vikings rape the fuck out of people,
right?
Lions, Rams, these are all badass creatures, and so who's to say that maybe there's a chance that whoever decided to come up with the Cleveland Indians or the Redskins name was complimenting the tribe for being badass.
Well, good try. Good try on that. I could see it maybe with the Redskins because that guy looks like a tough motherfucker.
Because I don't think that the
But-
Redskins are going to be like, we want to be the team that got slaughtered and
No,
pillaged
no, you
and
don't name the
fucking-
team the White Doves. You know, you don't have that name. You know, you always go with something powerful, of course. But that's different when you say the Seminoles. You know, and they're a specific tribe that you respect for their warring abilities. You
Yeah,
know, I mean that's very specifically complimenting them and saying that you are that creature. The Cleveland Indians is clearly, make fun of an Indian, and this is what we're going to characterize. You know, I mean, you look at all those cartoons from back in the era. You know, they're using all
it
sorts
was
of
pretty
racial shit.
racist.
I mean, any one of those cartoons right now, if you put them on Facebook or on the news or TV or something like that, people would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we did that." But then you show the Cleveland Indians, and the same people are like, "Well, what's a big deal?" You know. So that's how you kind of get brainwashed and stuff, because it becomes so normalized. You're sensitized. You becomes numb to that. And so you said it's kind of hard to offend you. I'm pretty easily offended. I get offended by racial slurs, homophobic slurs, sexist slurs, it's just general slurs, immature kind of shit. So I'm pretty easily offended by stuff. So is that saying that I'm overly sensitive?
Well, you don't act out as much as I've seen other people act out when it comes to
right.
this type of subjects.
Yeah, I probably
do
acted
pick
out a
your-
lot more when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, I would take on a person's challenge more when and I've done this before. You know, I've heard a person say, that's so gay, at my work, and I said, dude, you can't talk like that in my workspace, man. He's like, what? Kids say it all the time. I was like, that's right, they're kids, and you should be telling them not to say it.
Yeah.
That's not an appropriate way to say something is errant or wrong. You don't use that term because it's derogatory.
I think
I confronted him, and he's
Yeah.
a Marine, and I mean, he looked at me like, who the fuck are you, and but this is also the Northwest, so
especially in the school
down
though.
in South Texas, that's a dime a dozen where you're gonna hear stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But I think in any kind of, like, if I hear it at the bar, even, if somebody yell out, "Oh, that's so gay" or something, I mean.
But there is a difference between school and bar, in a sense that in school you're at higher expectation to lead these children. So yeah, a person of authority shouldn't be saying that.
But I also understand that if somebody does say it at a bar, for example, oftentimes it's in jest with the
Yeah.
intention of being funny
Yeah.
for using that word.
Yeah.
Not that, somebody gets their pull tabs or anything and they say, "Man, this bartender's gay,"
Yeah.
or "This is so gay."
Yeah.
That's just shows who they are, and they have a lack of vocabulary to come up with something that's other than "that's so gay." They're
Especially
saying
in
that everywhere.
2018, because I mean, when I was a teenager in the 80s, 90s, to say that was so common, but it was never offensive or vulgar towards anybody gay. It was just a free term that was so easy to use to describe something.
Sure.
But now that society has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's once again those number things that I was saying. Once we have that tipping point in which people say, "Oh, we
Yeah.
shouldn't say that."
I think I was 16 when someone said I shouldn't say that's gay.
So it's the same thing in schools with discipline. It's like, are we oversensitive? Or are we not sensitive enough? How many times I've heard, school discipline started when we took away the hacks. When we stopped hacking kids, that's when we have all these behavior problems. And that's so not true. It's so not connected. And to try to convince that to somebody that has that opinion is, and then they go on to say, "Well, my daddy beat me and I'm just fine." It's like, well, no, you're not just fine. You encourage the idea that these government officials should smack kids around.
Yeah, and you're smacking your kid around.
And you're smacking your kid around. Can you not be more creative than this? Can we not figure out a better way? Hell yeah, there's going to be discipline problems. There always will be. But how do we correct that without having to use force? And that's, I think, a key to creating more of a peaceful and empathetic society in general. So we don't lash out with people with name calling and just just attacks against the person. And that's where I am glad that we are becoming a more sensitive society. So I don't think that we're being overly sensitive, and I think that when people say things like, "Oh, we're just always politically correct," and this and that and the other thing. Well, for good reason. For Christ's sakes, you shouldn't say that.
Well, you're right, because sensitivity in a way is kind of coupled with awareness.
Absolutely.
And it's good to be aware of all of the effects that your words might have. But I think words are words, and I definitely think that the biggest problem with sensitive subjects is in comedy, because Dave Chappelle, for example, he crafted his jokes in such a way that he can make the audience laugh. Even if they were upset at themselves for laughing, he was still able to craft it in such a way that it was funny. But then there's these other comedians who are trying to do crafty things with less tact and experience, and they're getting called out. So there's not even a potential for that person to potentially get to the point where they can make these comments.
Yeah, I think that's the key is that a comedian. Grandma smokes with you.
Yeah.
The comedians that do discuss this issue well and can be on the line offensive, they take good care in the way that they structure the discussion. So you watch Dave Chappelle or George Carlin or some of these other comedians that talk about social issues, they'll frame their joke a long way. They'll talk for a good 5 minutes before they do that 1 second punchline.
Yes.
And so
yes.
You're hearing this lecture about all this other stuff until they finally get down to, yeah, fuck that motherfucker, then it's just hilarious because they got people thinking about what they're trying to convey as what is right. I mean, George Carlin was a master at that. He talked about all sorts of things. His big one that created policy change was the 7 words you can't say on television.
Yeah.
And he got arrested for that kind of stuff, and he brought it to the courts, and it went all the way, And
well, that was more of a freedom of speech movement, wasn't it?
well, yeah, but it's exactly what we're talking about: sensitivity issues. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits. Can't say those things on television, and let's just start with the first one. Shit. That is something that you can't say on TV until just recently. Shithole.
Yeah.
They said shithole so many times on TV. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was kind of like, what is this? I guess that's not one of the 7 words because it was like, I saw somebody.
Hole was attached to it.
Because hole was attached to it. No, see, somebody argued with George Carlin about that. They said, well, you motherfucker, you already said fuck, so fucker is just a derivative of fuck, so you're kind of repeating yourself. Mother, you can say.
Yeah.
But he's probably right. You couldn't say motherfucker.
Yeah.
Or if you did, they would only bleep out it would go mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Mother.
But they did not bleep out the shithole at all. They didn't bleep out the beep hole. Where they said S-hole, every so often, there's been so many funny skits on late night TV about how many times people said shithole on TV. So that's where we're changing again as a society. What can we put on? I mean, I remember when you couldn't do any of this shit. The only TV you could watch that had something bad on it, like without paying pay-per-view or HBO or something, was public access. Because they knew that they could go around the laws that you couldn't censor us having sex on TV. And so they did. They had all sorts of people taking bong hits and all sorts of crazy shit.
I remember growing up, I was like 16 years old, and I was flipping through the channels at my grandma's house on the cable box, and I came across the public access channel. Porn. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Well, and then years later, I couldn't believe it, flipping through my channels, and I get to Comedy Central. I don't watch very much TV, but I'm flipping through the channels. Oh, let's see what's on Comedy Central, and it's South Park, which I like South Park, but I don't watch it. I don't really follow it. I know who maybe the characters are, but whatever. And they're saying like shit and asshole, and I was like, what is they talking about? Like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, after a certain hour, you can start saying the shit.
Yep.
So pretty soon, we're just going that direction in which we're not being overly sensitive in a lot of ways. That we are allowing that freedom of speech. I think that some people that are being overly sensitive about the freedom of speech are the conservatives that, like my parents, I wouldn't say shit in their presence. I mean, very rarely.
Yeah.
But that's like you were saying, the awareness of who you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
What's your audience here?
and the context of what you're saying.
Right, and the context.
But I do feel like even if the context is right, people are still getting easily offended, to where it's almost like an individual thing. Like they do it almost as a way to kind of express who they are as an individual and their beliefs, and sharing it with everybody else.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, with the social media, it's easy. If you have a comedian before you didn't like him, you know, you heckle him on stage, and then if it came to bullshit, then you met each other after the thing and you yelled at each other and everybody got in each other's face, or, you know, shit went down like that. Now you just say, fuck that guy. Right there at the table, you can post, this comedian's a dick. You know, you can totally right there without talking to the person and getting some sort of understanding. And I get it, you know, I mean, some people say some shit on stage that it really tells more about who they are as a person than it does about their comedic work. You can see that this guy is like this all the time. This is not just a joke.
This is not an act. This is not a character.
This is who they are. And that's where you start, you know, that's where if I wanted to help maybe make that person change their mind about the way they say things, then so be it. But I think that when you're on stage like that, anything goes. And I've hosted open mics for a long time, and I've had a lot of people disagree with me about this, but I don't give a shit if you suck balls and you get up there with a 2-string piccolo. I don't even know what the fuck it is, you know. You get your 15 minutes like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And that's the same with comedians. They deserve the right to be as bad as anybody else. And I've had bars say, don't let that guy up there tonight. I was like, he signed up like everybody else. He's here buying a beer. And too fucking bad. This is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
This is not John Picks who gets to play tonight. So.
Well, what does it take, though, to be considered over the top in that situation? Is it someone who...
In music?
In music or comedy, where like, is it just a repetitive, habitual thing that this person does?
There's a comic in the community that I noticed that oftentimes when he gets up, the whole place cringes, and a lot of people want to go out and have a cigarette just because they don't like it. Yeah. And it doesn't mean it's bad, in my opinion. I don't like it, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
It's his chance to do it. This is his thing. This is what it's about for having open mic. If he never gets on a show, you know, then he might have to change his craft to get there. But when he wants his 15 minutes, he can do it. And I think it's the same with political rants, you know. I mean, I'll go as far as saying, yeah, the KKK can get up there and say what they want to, but they can pay the consequences for that shit. Just like this comedian. He's paying the consequences of not getting accepted by the community. And, you know, that if that's... you know, unfair, then so be it. But what I think he should do is say, why am I not being accepted, and what can I do to make things differently, if that's what I want? Yeah. You know, or if I just want to get my rocks off while I'm up here and that's what I want, then good for you too.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a hobby and you don't give a fuck, you know, and you're just up there for yourself to get your reps in and have someone listen to you, then yeah, you don't need to grow or get better. But
right,
if you're doing comedy and you don't care about trying to get booked or make a living off of it, then what the fuck are you doing, really? But you're right. You have to change. You have to, if that's what you want to do. You have to. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, I think that. Well, I haven't seen any saboteurs, so it's not like somebody just says, "Hey, this is my 15 minutes. I can say whatever the fuck I want." You know.
So go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I don't care if I'm funny or not. I'm gonna do this. I mean, I think he's genuinely trying to be funny.
Yes.
And the same thing applies with music. I think that when that 2-stringed piccolo guy gets up there, he's genuinely thinking to play music. Yeah. He thinks he's good. And it's not our place to say you are not allowed to try your best here. Yeah. Now, if he was going in there to fuck it up, to be intentionally a dick to that group, then that's where I might draw the line. Yeah. For example, open mic tonight at Brother Don's. Here's a plug for you, Brother Don's. Most of the music there is kind of cutesy and easygoing, you know, very folksy and, you know, pretty kind of music, you know. And I don't play there a lot because I like to play, you know, a little bit more edgy kind of stuff. Yeah. But I know that. And I'm not going to just say, hey, it's an open mic, I can do what I want. Yeah. But I like these people and they like me, so I'm going to do something that's, you know, good for both of us.
Yeah, it's important to know your environment and to know
Right.
that if you have the ability to tone
Right.
it down a little bit, you can.
And so that's the whole issue of sensitivity. So it comes to a grand scale of Trump saying Pocahontas all the way down to somebody on Facebook saying, yeah, but you're stupid and ugly. I mean, it's really how you pick your places of discourse and how you choose to behave yourself in that. You know,
Yeah.
Trump obviously believes he's okay with this, you know, and most politicians and people disagree. I mean, most people, 38% approve, so that would be most disapprove of the way he discusses things.
Yeah.
So
I was on, there was a post in Secret Bremerton the other day. Someone was asking about where to go to get their beard manicured or whatever you call it. And some guy wrote in on his first comment says, "Oh, this is the new stupidest shit I've seen all day." And you know what? Like, and then everybody jumped on him. And then, but here's the thing: everybody jumped on him.
well, it made me laugh. I mean, that's pretty good.
And you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, where are you gonna go with this? But where he went with it was when people called him out, his go-to was to stalk their profile and then fat shame them.
Oh.
So I piped in a couple times and I said something to the guy. But it's like, it's so frustrating because I do think it is a lack of vocabulary thing. Like, this was this guy's go-to offense, was to fat shame these
Well,
people.
he's picking a fight. He just wants to get a rise out of
But
people.
he didn't do a good job of it. Like,
Yeah,
he
I
didn't,
mean-
like, everybody shut him down and he still kept going. And then it turned into a last
Well,
word.
they obviously didn't shut him down if he kept going.
Well, he kept repeating himself. That's what I'm saying. He kept fat shaming and just saying the stupid shit. But then I will say the people that were piping in against him were saying just as equally bad shit about his where he works and his penis size and stuff like this, you know.
I don't even know his penis size.
And that's where he's like, it's funny that you guys are acting like you know me, you know. And
Hey,
it's
you like my new plant?
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, I'm glad you did say you didn't like it because that would have hurt my feelings.
No, it's cool. Reminds me of a fern holly.
It would have hurt my feelings. I looked really hard for that fern, but it took me about 10 minutes.
But
Alright.
but the thing is that it was frustrating to see that people's comebacks weren't all that good, and I didn't continue to argue with them because if it's one thing that I've heard online that makes so much sense, is that don't argue with stupid people because they'll beat you with years of experience.
Oh, right here.
And that's the case. You know?
Well, yeah, you know, I not only have practiced arguing and debating people, you know, but I've got some education behind it. You know, I've got trained in this shit, so it's. No, I don't want that crap.
I'll take it.
Which one?
One right
The
there by the
fancy
door.
one.
Yeah, the good beer.
I didn't see it.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. I hope nobody else does.
What'd you get? Oh,
Yeah, good thing that wasn't on video. You almost got handed a Miller Lite. Oh, fuck. Get triggered.
God. Yeah, why are people so sensitive these days?
Yeah, I don't know. Why don't you tell me, man? You can't talk shit about Trump without
Yeah.
people getting all pissed off.
Can't talk about Indian baseball teams, Miller Lights.
I brought up abortion today,
fuck?
and
I
it took
can't talk about
5 minutes
baseball
for me to
in
delete my
America.
post.
Oh
What?
god.
You brought up what?
Abortion today.
But see, now you're pushing the sleeping
that's-
bear. You
Not
know?
really, because my subject was I openly said I'm not saying okay. I've
That's
always
one of those touchy subjects.
it is, but I've always said I support the woman's choice. Okay, but the subject was not like abortion itself, whether or not it's bad or right, but if there should be a cutoff time. Okay.
Yeah, once you're fucking conceived, you shouldn't be able to kill it.
Well, of course.
That's your
That's
cutoff.
Oh
why.
god,
That's
we're
why
not
you're
going to
in
go
this
into an
conversation.
abortion debate.
But this is a good way to
No.
end it. He's getting
We're
way
talking.
too
We're
sensitive.
talking about sensitive stuff, not abortion. Did you get a copy of this?
Yes.
But
I'll take another though.
my subject-
Actually, can I have the big one?
Yeah.
my subject was purely if there should be a cutoff time and what it should be, and I could tell people were getting really heated about it
Uh huh.
and taking it back to the stance of whether it's right or wrong in general.
I'm closing.
And I was like, no, I'm not trying to get to that. I'm trying to get to if there is a cutoff point where it should be.
Where it should be.
You know, like, are we gonna wait until we see what color eyes it has before we decide? I mean, come on.
Nice.
But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. That's a good little test run, and we'll see how that sounds and
You
go
guys
from
aren't
there.
Doing video though?
No,
I'm sure it sounds like shit.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I hit this thing a few times.
No, it'll be
That's really
fun.
cool.
Nice.
What the heck are they filling into a Ziploc bag? Well, not a Ziploc, but
Just a little
just a
Yeah, they're just grocery bags. I call them a